Revisiting Tiger King. Take one. I'm here today with Carole Baskin. So Carole, as Tiger King was such a great success, I thought it would be a great idea if we take some questions from the public. The first question comes from Grandpa Musley.
Hi Carole, big fan here. I want to know, how has COVID affected the rescue efforts?
It's been extremely difficult for the sanctuary because on March 15th of 2020, we closed our gates due to COVID. And we didn't know at the time that COVID could actually kill cats. We have since learned that to be the case. But we also, because of closing down on March 15th of 2020, and then everybody knows Tiger King came out on March the 20th of 2020, and people were threatening to burn the place to the ground. They wanted to kill the cats because they didn't belong in cages. So we had two reasons why there was no way we were going to be open to the public. And that is over $1 million a year of our revenue to take care of these cats and to rescue them. So it's deeply impacted our ability to do this work. But I have some really good news today in that we are just about to announce to our donor base that we are rescuing 11 tigers that are in a zoo in Phuket, Thailand, that closed due to COVID as well. And these cats are actually literally starving to death. And we are doing a campaign right now to move them to a sanctuary that's about 9 hours away in Thailand. So we are still able to do our work of rescuing these big cats, but it's been made very hard by losing about a third of our income.
The next question comes from David Reed.
Hi Carole, how you doing? I was just wanting to ask if you how close you thought the United States now was to banning the practice of allowing animals to be kept in captivity and as pets. Also, I just wondered what your thoughts were on whether the Tiger King show has helped or hindered these efforts.
I think overall it helped, even though Tiger King focused on the craziness of the characters involved and barely even mentioned the things that we thought that this film was going to be about, was all of the abuse of big cats and why they don't belong in cages. I think the public still understood, after seeing the way these animals were being treated, that this was no life for them. We've been working on a federal bill to ban the private possession of big cats in America and to stop the cub petting. It's the breeding of all of these cubs, like you saw in Tiger King, where people pay $20 to have their picture made, that causes all these hundreds of tigers and lions and ligers to be dumped into private hands as soon as they reach about 12 to 16 weeks of age. We've been fighting for that bill since 1998. And I think we will get it passed this session. Our congressional session is 2 years. So we already have over 250 co-sponsors in the House, which is a majority, which means it'll pass there. And so now we're working on the Senate. So we've got a full year, 2022, which is the year of the tiger, to actually get that passed. But the only thing it will do is stop the cub petting, which is driving the breeding and discarding of cats, and it phases out the private ownership. I would love to see a world where there were no more cats in cages, but I think we are probably a decade away from reaching that goal.
Chris Aikman wants to know, what is your opinions on PETA?
I don't know why they would have lost popularity in the UK. One of the things I have found really interesting in the aftermath of Tiger King is that in the US, I would have literally tens of thousands of mostly young men calling and cursing me out and threatening my life and being so hateful. But the people that I talked to in the UK were very supportive, because you guys banned all of these horrible activities against animals back in the 70s. And you've reached a higher level of evolution than we have over here in the United States. So I would have thought that PETA would be much loved in the UK because of the fact that they have been out there leading the way in ending the abuse, especially of big cats, with their lawsuits to enforce the Endangered Species Act, which would ban the private ownership of these cats and the breeding and the discarding and all of the horrible things, because those things really should already be illegal under the laws that we have. They just haven't been, it hasn't been enforced that way. And so PETA has been holding the government's feet to the fire to make them do the right thing for these animals. And I love them for that.
The next question comes from myself. What was your reaction once you realized that the creators of Tiger King had started to paint Joe Exotic in a very sympathetic light?
I was blown away by that, because we worked with the producers of Tiger King for 5 years on what they said was going to be the Blackfish film for big cats, that it would expose all of these evil things that these people do to these animals. And instead, it did try to make him look like he was a country and Western singer when he never sang those songs. He paid somebody to write and he just lip sync to them. But they never pointed that out in the film. And I think the music was so good, and and I loved the music as well. I didn't love the words, of course, but the singer and the music score behind it, it was really catchy tunes. And I think people thought that he was like this great undiscovered person who represented who they were, if at their very worst. If you can imagine, if you could live in a world where you could say or do anything that you wanted to, and you never had to face the consequences of that, that was Joe Exotic. And so I think, especially during COVID, people really looked at that and thought, you know, I wish I could be like that. I wish I could say what was on my mind. I wish I could just be a jerk. And I think they really associated with him because of the way that the Tiger King producers tried to portray him and how they downplayed so many of the horrible things that they knew about him, because we had sent them to the people who could tell them about the horrible things that he had done. And those people weren't in Tiger King. Their stories weren't told about the vicious, cruel things that he would do to animals. In fact, there's a book out right now by his cellmate. He was in jail in the Garvin County Jail for about a year and a half, I think, before he got sent to the federal penitentiary. And his cellmate was a guy named Kevin Wick, who wrote a book called something like 60 Days in a Cage with a Tiger King or something like that. It's on Amazon. But in it, he talks about all of the cruel things that Joe would report to him and all of the discussions of bestiality and how Joe walked right up to those tigers and shot them in the face because he needed cage space for the circus that was going to be boarding cats there. And those stories never made it into Tiger King. And if they had, nobody would have liked Joe. Nobody would have had free Joe Exotic campaigns running all over the place. So why on earth they did it, I can't even begin to guess. Their story would have been so much better had it been truthful, and it would have moved the world to save the tigers more quickly. Instead, it created this whole weird phenomenon of people wanting to be like Joe or wanting to be Team Joe, when I just can't even imagine a world where people would want to be that abusive to other people or to other animals. And yet that's what came out of Tiger King.
Whilst watching Tiger King, I saw in the news that a tiger at the Bronx Zoo in New York had tested positive for coronavirus. Is this something that you yourself have had to worry about?
I think the zoos have opened up way too quickly after COVID. We knew by, I think, probably September or October of 2020 that COVID could kill cats. And so all of us in the sanctuary community were getting together. We were talking with experts in the field. And even though there is a vaccine for it, apparently it does not work in some cats like the snow leopards. And so I have chosen to stay closed to the public. And a lot of sanctuaries aren't open to the public at all. So those cats are fairly safe. We still have the exposure from our volunteers and our keepers who come in, but we have enacted very strict protocols to try and prevent the spread of COVID to our cats. Two of our cats have tested positive for COVID. One of them had been euthanized already because of her old age issues. She was 25 years old. But after we sent the stuff in for the lab reports, it came back that she was also positive for COVID. And the second one recovered within a week or so. So she's okay now. But it's really scary, and it is affecting the big cats and primates in zoos and sanctuaries all around the world.
My next question is, however, what are your plans for the future? And what can the public do to end the breeding of big cats for life in cages?
My vision is a world where all wild cats live free. And I think that we can actually do that through virtual reality. So every week we put out a regular film on YouTube, and we have hundreds of millions of views on YouTube because it's an amazing channel. Our videographer is fantastic, but we started a few years ago putting out an immersive film every week too. And so those films are the ones where you put the headset on and you're like in the cage with the cat, and you're seeing the cat when they're eating, and you're looking up into their mouth when they're eating. And it's like you could never get that close to an animal at any facility, any zoo or any sanctuary. And so we want people to demand that kind of footage, because you can get that kind of footage in the wild. You can put live internet streaming cameras in the wild where these cats live and capture that in real time and see who these animals really are. And then you can use smart contracts like blockchain and divert all of the subscription fees where you're paying to see that footage to the people who actually live near those animals. And you can do that on a per subscription basis so that it's actually bypassing the corrupt governments. It's going directly into the wallets of the people who live there. And it turns everybody into a game warden. And if you can't afford a $500 headset, then you pay your $10 and you go to the zoo. But instead of the zoos having wild animals in cages, they have these huge immersive displays where you use their headset. But in addition to that, if you're in the jungles of India, it's sweltering hot and you can smell the curry being cooked in the tents next door. You know, you have this entire feeling of being there with these animals. That's what education is all about. That's what zoos claim to be all about. And if they really are there for conservation purposes, then all of that money, or the vast majority of it, should go to the wild places where these animals live. Hey, all you cool cats and kittens, it's Carole Baskin from Big Cat Rescue, and I hope you will help me save big cats in the wild where they belong. Just go to the link bigcatrescue.org/earth.